Hey, in this video, I'm going to explain why buying properties from auction can be so good for your property business and your growth, scaling your portfolio, or just generally doing different developments. Because I bought a few properties over the years and there's been so many different people stay away from properties that are being sold at auction because there can be issues there. But I'm going to explain my experiences and also share some insights into how the auction process typically works, and again, just how we've kind of navigated around that. So one of the biggest reasons auction properties can be really, really good is that they can be priced really aggressively based on the circumstances of the sale. Now, you typically have two different sellers there. You have private sellers who are looking for a pretty hassle-free sale. So they don't maybe want to go with a traditional estate agent. They maybe fear that a property they're selling is going to stick on the market for X amount of time and have generated very little interest. And hence they go down the auction route, because with the auction terms, typically for a private sale, there will be a 28-day completion between the offer or the bid being accepted and to the buyer having to complete and actually pay and purchase for the property. And with that, that brings a level of certainty for a seller, because then they know that if someone has their offer or their bid accepted, they have to, in most circumstances and how most auction companies work, put down a 10% deposit there and then, sign the missives, and also pay the auction fees as part of that transaction, right? So there's a commitment level there. Whereas if you compare that to, say, advertising with a traditional estate agent, which is absolutely okay, by the way, you don't have to sell through auction, but there's uncertainty there in the sense of, well, how long is it going to be on the market? How many other properties are potentially advertised on the market as well that you're then going to be competing against? And also, most buyers would be buying with finance, right? So there's an element of risk there where, yes, okay, you can potentially accept an offer, but if a buyer is going to be using lending or a mortgage, then there's always that risk that that lending doesn't come through, it doesn't get approved, you know, affordability reasons, whatever that is, and then there's a chance that that transaction could fall through. So it's a lot less of a certain way of selling a property than going through auction, right? So there's one method. Now, we've bought a combination of private sellers and also corporate sellers. So to kind of break that down to you, what a corporate seller basically is it's mainly repossessions. It's banks that have taken over by people who haven't maybe been paying their mortgage, right? So as part of the T's and C's of the mortgage and the lending, there's that ability to repossess. Now, we've got two corporate sales from auction companies, two different auction companies, and our experience has been pretty good. Now, what to consider with corporate sales here is that while I've mentioned private sales are typically 28-day completions, there can be differences between corporate sales. So, for example, the Silverwells project that we bought was a 14-day completion. So when you actually weighed that project up in isolation, it was fucked, it was knackered, it needed a hell of a lot of strip out work just to get rid of the damp issue that was there, which was caused by internal tank being burst. So structurally it was all sound, right? But the 14-day completion with the price that they were looking for, because it was a corporate sale, I actually tried to go direct to the auction company and do a deal pre-auction just to get it secured, because I knew it was such a good opportunity. I knew there probably would be interest in it just based on its location, based on the property type, the size of it, the land that came with it. I thought this is going to be a very appealing property for someone, but it's a bloody big project, right? So when you actually weighed up the price, that was £160,000 guide price, with the kind of condition of the property, with the level of works that was being done there, and also the conditions of the auction, which was a 14-day completion, it effectively meant, when you actually analysed all that together, that there's probably actually a limited pool of buyers here because of the conditions there, the price point, that level of investment that would be required into that development. So we basically looked at that and thought, well, let's try our hand at a pre-auction bid. But fundamentally, because it was a corporate sale, they want to really maximise their take home and what they can earn off of that, because there may be a level of debt that they need to clear as part of the mortgage. So the pre-auction didn't happen, but the beautiful thing is you can do that. You can go to an auction company. You don't have to wait till the bidding date to put in your offer where you're going to be in a bidding war with other people. You could get carried away with emotions, and that pre-auction route can really just allow you to purely offer based on the numbers and not get caught up with emotion, which is another huge thing. So yeah, 28 days private seller, 14 days corporate sale. So always be aware of these auction terms because they can be different. But another massive part of buying from auction is legal packs. There are some really good auction companies out there. There are some terrible auction companies out there. Some are really forthcoming with information, have all the details there that you need. Some have very little, and I've seen instances where an auction property has been advertised, there's maybe only photos of the exterior of the property. You're not seeing the condition internally, you're not seeing if there's any structural issues, if there's damp issues, etc. And sometimes they won't produce a legal pack in time, or purposely, I think anyway, could be wrong, but they delay the release of the legal pack till right up prior to the auction so that you've got little time to do thorough due diligence on it. And one rule I have, and I would recommend for every single one of you watching or listening to this just now, is have your legal pack thoroughly analysed by your solicitor or a solicitor prior to even bidding or making pre-auction offers, because once your offer and bid is accepted, you are legally bound to sign those missives, pay your deposit, pay the auction fee, and basically complete within the 14 or 28 days, whatever the terms are for that specific listing. So yeah, fundamental rule, legal pack checked at all times. Now, other thing with auction, right? Another rule of mine is I always view properties prior to buying. Now, that can upset some auction companies. I've seen them on social media saying you don't need to view properties, but for me it's a fundamental because, yeah, the property might be cheap, but I want to know, just through thorough due diligence, what it's roughly going to cost me to do up. Because if I buy a property from auction that's cheap as fuck, right, but it needs 3 times the amount spent on it than what it is purchasing it, what's the risk in that? How much contingency am I going to need? How far back do I need to strip things here? Is there any evidence of damp issues, etc.? And sometimes if a listing is lacking in data, i.e. there's no internal photos, like, you're just opening your can of worms in terms of the potential risk that's going to be at play there. So I completely get it in terms of why auction companies say you don't need to view properties, you're buying it at such a steal. But for me as a developer and kind of relying on, making cash out of these deals, I want to be pretty nailed on with my due diligence and want to know exactly what my numbers are going to be. There or thereabouts. Yes, there'll be things go wrong in terms of the project. You're probably going to overspend. You might even spend less. But at least you know going into that project that you've done the due diligence that's necessary. Whereas if you can't go and view a property, some auction companies don't let you view properties, which again, for me, as a personal value piece, that's a bit of a red flag as well. So always have that in mind. Just come up with your own rules in terms of that, but legal pack is an absolute must there. Another kind of example was buying our Bastille built apartment at auction there. The other thing that sometimes happens is you are inheriting somebody's past mess sometimes, right? So the situation was the owner had, I think, passed away from what I believe, and all his belongings basically were there. So you're sometimes liable to then dispose of those. It's kind of sold the scene, and it's up to you how you effectively want to do it in terms of selling them off, passing things to charity, or you might even get the benefit of that. So fundamentally, to summarize that, if you are looking at auction properties and you're also looking at on-market properties that are sold through estate agents in the traditional manner, your due diligence should be the same, but just a wee bit more for auction properties. So legal pack, absolute must. View the property, that's a rule for me across the board, regardless if it's an auction buy or if it's a traditional estate agent, or even if it's a private seller that you've generated through your own marketing tactics to get that lead in the door. And number crunching is fundamentally what it all comes down to, because so many people, even starting out in property, can get caught up in the emotion of bidding in the room, of making offers pre-auction bid, because they just want something. They're maybe trying to grasp at something. They think that looks a good deal, that looks a good price, let's just take the risk on it. But something's only ever as worth as what you're willing to pay for it. So as long as you've done your research in terms of how much it's going to cost me to do up, what's the end market value here, and you've decided on your exit if you're going to be retaining it as part of your portfolio, or if you are going to be selling this one on and making a lump sum of profit, whatever your strategy is, right? The numbers need to stack first and foremost, because this is an investment. So You wouldn't put money into an ISA or a pension and have an emotional tie to it other than what's going to give you at the end of it. Property is different because property can generate you that cash flow, it can generate you that equity, and it can generate you potential capital growth over the long term. So you want to make sure you're buying the right asset in the right area with the de-risk done as much as possible with thorough due diligence. So yes, some great deals to be had at auction, absolutely some spectacular deals to be had at auction, but make sure your due diligence is absolutely on point with it.